This episode is brought to you by Blueprint Health. Blueprint Health is a measurement-based care platform for mental health providers. You can find out more about them by going to practiceoftherapy.com/blueprinthealth. And also this episode is brought to you by TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com, the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers in private practice. They're who I use in my practice. Check them out at practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, helping you to navigate your private practice journey. This is session number 194 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, folks. I'm Gordon Brewer. Glad you've joined me for the podcast and glad you're with me on this journey. If this is your first time listening in, glad you found us. And for those of you coming back for more, glad you're with me. And I hope you'll take time to follow us wherever you might be listening to the podcast. So I'm really happy to have my guest today, Tasha Rollins. And Tasha reached out to me, and when I found out about her niche, I knew that it would be something that would strike a chord with a lot of people. One of the things that Tasha has done is started an Autism Therapist Network, and you can find out more about that by going to autism-therapist-network.com. But we're going to be talking about that. And what I love about people like Tasha is that she has taken a passion that she feels and turned it into her niche. And I think that's one of the things that's most important about finding your niche, is really looking at what speaks to you, what you find meaning in, and that being how you kind of discover your niche in this whole thing of being a therapist or counselor or that sort of thing. And Tasha is going to share with us some of her personal experience and being an autism mom, as she calls it, of having a child that is struggles with autism and is on the spectrum. So anyway, looking forward to you having that, hearing from her. Also, I'd love for you to go check out the Google Workspace as a practice platform course. It's in the pre-launch still, and you can get it at a pretty significant discount. And you can find out more about that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/GWS platform. And this is a course that really piggybacks on what we've done in the Google Workspace for Therapists course, which just really kind of goes over all the basics of using Google Workspace in the context of a private practice. This kind of takes it to the next level of really thinking about how you can use those tools as a platform in your practice. So be sure and check it out, practiceoftherapy.com/GWS platform. And you can get in on the early bird pricing as we're doing the pre-launch right now. Also, one of the things that's coming up that I need to remember to tell you about, and that is Killing It Camp. And Killing It Camp is a conference being sponsored by Practice of the Practice. My good friend Joe Sanok and his team are putting that on, and I'm going to be a speaker this year. Going to be speaking on two different areas of private practice. And it's going to be a great conference, and it's in a beautiful location. And you can check it out by going to practiceoftherapy.com/KIC, which stands for Killing It Camp, KIC 2021. And that'll redirect you to their landing page. And there'll be links here in the show notes as well. Again, that's practiceoftherapy.com, KIC 2021. And so looking forward to hopefully seeing you there. I think it's going to be another great conference. I got to do it back in 2019 live. We did it virtually the last year due to COVID stuff. this year it's going to be live again with all the COVID precautions recommended by the CDC. So anyway, check it out. And also, before we get to Tasha, I want you to take a moment just to hear from the sponsors of the podcast, Blueprint Health and also TherapyNotes. You know, running a great behavioral health practice is hard. If you're insurance-based, payers are demanding more and more measurable outcomes. Therapists are getting harder than ever to hire and find, and clients expect digitally enabled care experience. Introducing Blueprint, the all-in-one measurement-based care platform that helps behavioral health providers grow top-line practice revenue, increase clinician satisfaction, and deliver more effective care. Blueprint's intuitive platform administers, scores, and charts hundreds of symptom ratings to give clinicians deeper insights into how clients are progressing. And you may be eligible to earn additional reimbursement for each administered outcome measure. Get your first month free by going to practiceoftherapy.com/blueprint health. That's practiceoftherapy.com/blueprint health. You know, in running a private practice, you need to have excellent systems and processes in place. And one of the leading electronic health record systems that you need to check out is TherapyNotes. They're who I use in my practice. TherapyNotes provides a patient portal, also the ability to schedule online, send appointment reminders, also handle your collections, insurance claims. It's all in one platform for the clinical side of your practice. And they also have telehealth available through their platform. As I said, they are who I use in my practice and couldn't do without them. So be sure and check them out. Go to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and you'll be able to see what they have available. And also be sure and use the promo code Gordon, just GORDON, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. That's TherapyNotes at practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. So hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm so glad for you to get to know Tasha Rollins. And Tasha is a person that reached out to me online, and I'm real excited about this topic because I think it will be important for a lot of people. But Tasha, why don't you tell folks about yourself and how you've kind of landed where you landed?
Well, thank you again so much for having me here today, Gordon. This has been an absolute pleasure to be able to come on and do this and share what we're doing and all the opportunities available for all of our fellow clinicians. I landed in the world of autism as a parent. So my oldest son is now 22 years old. I have 3 sons. My middle son is 20 and my youngest is 8. So my 2 oldest both have autism spectrum disorder, and they were diagnosed later in middle school and high school. And I didn't actually go back to grad school until after my 3rd son was born. And just decided that when I straight out of grad school, I was going to go into private practice, and decided I was going to go ahead and serve what I was very most passionate about because of my journey in parenthood. And that was how I really got started in private practice.
Right. And so your Tasha is located in Easley, South Carolina, which I know easily, and we were talking about that before started recording. But one of the things that's real exciting that Tasha's doing is she's creating a Autism Therapist Network. And so you want to talk about kind of, obviously you have a passion for working with people on the spectrum, but you want to talk maybe a little bit about the history and how that dream came to be?
Yes. Well, research shows only 2 out of 44 mental health clinicians feel comfortable working with the autistic population, which makes it really hard for families like mine to access services. And even like currently right now, both of my sons are in transition with their mental health services, and it's been really, really hard to find a new counselor to come in and work with them. A lot of times, I think it comes down to competency and having the skill sets and the education. But really, with the network, it was based out of a need because of what I was going through. And then I think frustration from all of the additional parents, which I refer to as the autism tribe, all of the parents' complaints of how hard it is to access services. I was reading a news article yesterday, and it showed that 1 in 5 families actually relocate, they move because they don't have access to services. So there's a really big gap here in mental health and accessibility for the autistic population.
Right. Yeah. And I would, in the little bit that I know about working with that population, one of the things that I would guess, even not only for parents of children who are on the spectrum, but also just therapists, having that support, because it's, I just can only imagine how demanding it is.
It is very, very demanding, and it's frustrating. We run into a lot of roadblocks, and oftentimes either the school setting or the mental health setting, they're really the front lines for accessing continuum of care services for life transitional things. Children with autism grow up to be adults with autism, and the lack of services for after they age out of school, that's a big concern. It's estimated that anywhere between 70 and 100,000 plus children age out of high school services with very little transitional supports in place.
Right. Yeah. So tell us more about the network and the process that you've been through with all of that.
So this has been super, super exciting and a super busy time as well. My main mission is to educate clinicians and to have them collaborate with one another on the skill sets that they need to improve on. I think oftentimes we get comfortable in therapy, in our private practices with the certain niche or population that we work with. And we do have to do continuing education to meet our licensure requirements, but very little of that training, it doesn't seem like there's much out there for autism. And I don't know if it's lack of resource accessibility, the fact that there's not a lot of trainings. I know Pezzi does an awesome training, the Autism Symposium that they did earlier in the spring. But that's really one of the very few that I've seen. The Autism Network itself for therapists is structured so that we have the weekly ongoing educational workshops. We have opportunities to collaborate and really offer that peer clinical consultation support in a very confidential way. And then also offer opportunities to meet and greet one another and really build a community there of support.
Yeah, I'm excited about this because I know it's something that's just been really needed with. I'm just thinking about in my own practice, just one of the things that I hear is from my therapists that are particularly working with kids is, just the lack of resources in our area. I mean, there's a few organizations around, but as far, unfortunately, there are a lot of therapists that just aren't comfortable in working with the autism population.
The educational workshops are really focused on what I call the autism algorithm. And it's focused on 3 different C's, I guess, which include competency, clinical skills, and then community, knowing who to really work with in your community. You're going to have a whole autism tribe of people that you are going to work with that are professionals, whether it be school professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, developmental behavioral pediatrics, and the list goes on and on. There's a lot of other specific interventionists that work in early intervention, like speech therapy and occupational therapy. So you create a whole team for your client. And you have the ability to offer the best treatment plan available with good quality continuum of care.
Right, right. So, yeah, I'm curious, and I'm sure some of the listeners would be curious too. In working with the autism population, what are the skill sets that people that are therapists really need to hone in on?
Well, I think that we really need to be open-minded in adaptability and flexibility. So you might have a particular intervention that is structured for like CBT, but you might have to modify it or adapt it gently for the executive functioning or the cognitive ability of your client. So really kind of getting a good overview of where your client is with executive functioning, cognitive ability, as well as their emotional regulation. That's really important to take into consideration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with this, say you've got um, say a client that's coming in, they've got behavior problems, and they're, they might be depressed or anxiety problems. I associate a lot of anxiety with being with autism.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, what are some of the starting places that you would say? I mean, as far as assessment and that kind of thing.
We really want to make sure that your client understands their emotions, that they really have a good idea of what that looks like when it comes up, what their warning signs are, and how to use those certain coping skills that you guys work through in session when they're not with you in therapy. So what are the red flags that they would have? What are their signals? What are their body's physical symptoms? And giving them visuals, that's very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, I think for anybody, not just someone with autism, but anybody, oftentimes when we're talking about things, it's hard to retain that information. So making sure that they have plenty of resources available that they can take home with them and use them as visual prompts for ongoing maintenance of their emotions so that they can regulate when they're not in therapy.
Right. So a lot of homework. And I would think too, a lot would involve working with the parents and really kind of taking a systemic approach with things.
Absolutely. And making sure that everyone's on the same page. The parents, oftentimes we have families come in and they present, and then when they leave, they're at a loss for what to do. And it's because they don't have the step 1, step 2, step 3 to carry on throughout and practice, right? Practice. It takes a lot of structure and routine for our clients to learn to feel comfortable and to learn that have those new neural pathways start to form where their habits transition and it becomes second nature.
Right, right. So, yeah. So what else would you think would be important for people to know about working with the autism population?
I think the number one consideration for working with the autism population is to make sure that you have the education behind it, that when you get a referral, that in order to be comfortable and competent, you need to understand person-centered planning. You need to understand cognitive behavioral therapy and really have a good toolbox to pull from when working with these clients. And all of these are going to be things that we teach throughout the Autism Network trainings with the educational workshops. We're going to have expert spotlights that come in and share their words of wisdom with this. And I think the more that you can grow your network with supported people in your industry, in your field, have those around you, the more that you guys can work together and the more you're going to learn to grow.
Right, right. Yeah, I love that. And it's something certainly that's been needed for some time. So tell folks how they can find out more about the network and maybe join and what's involved in all of that.
So you can go to the autismtherapistnetwork.com webpage, and there is a wait list at the bottom. It gives a really good overview of everything that's included in the program that we just mentioned before, with the educational workshops, the expert spotlight segments, the extra bonuses that are available. There is an autism dictionary that'll go along with the course for one of the options. And then there's also For continuum of care, there's an autism tribe guide that you can download. You can use it as a resource to give to your families, to give to your parents, so they know who they may be seeking out to work with or who you can refer them to, but also just to inform you that there's probably a lot more professionals in your area that you have the ability to build referral resources from. I know when I went straight from grad school into private practice, I had no idea how long it was going to take me to have a full caseload. And it was 90 days. It was less than 90 days, actually, to go from 0 to full. And sometimes we struggle with having a full caseload. But when you have a population in need and there's a lack of services, you're not going to have that problem.
Right. And so that would be, again, I think about that as being just a really important niche that maybe doesn't get as much spotlight as it should, just around all of that. So, So what else would you say, Tasha, that you feel like would be important for people to know around this topic?
Well, I think that joining us for the Autism Virtual Mental Health Summit coming up in October would be a great place to start. You'll get some free access to some of the professionals that we hope to spotlight during the network's 6-month membership. And really just, go visit the website, check it out. You probably know someone that has autism. 1 in 54 children are diagnosed according to the CDC. And something interesting, that's based on 2016 data.
Wow.
So that's like 5 years off with research, in terms of prevalence. So that's just going to continue to rise. You're going to see an influx of referrals come in with an autism diagnosis. And keep it in mind, too, that you guys already have the experience that you need. You may not have had an autism intensive in grad school, but you definitely have the experience to manage all the dual diagnoses, such as generalized anxiety disorder, depression, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Those are some of the most common ones that are dual diagnosed with autism. And then really taking a good look when you do get a referral at the medical records that come along with that. You might have a psychological report, and that psychological report is going to go way in further detail at the very end with treatment recommendations beyond just the actual diagnosis that they were looking for from the testing. And those are things to consider in treatment planning. Check out the free summit that we're going to be talking about and coming up in October. And then just go check out the website, autismtherapistnetwork.com, and get on that wait list.
All right. Yeah. And we'll be sure to have links here in the show notes and the show summary for all of those things. Well, Tasha, I want to be respectful of your time. And this was just a great topic. And I think it's going to be interesting to a lot of people than just thinking about, particularly for folks that have a passion for working with people, well, just in general, people with disabilities and particularly with autism spectrum stuff. It's a very unique population. And I know I'll say I have worked with a few autism spectrum people in the past, and it's been great. The one perspective I would say is that they see the world through a totally different lens that is just absolutely fascinating to me. So,
yes. And you will not meet one client that is the same as another. Every single individual with autism is unique. And I believe that there's a quote out there by Stephen Shore that says that, author Stephen Shore, but it's very, very true. My two boys on the spectrum are completely different from one another. And they got their diagnoses at different times. They need a lot of support, and we can provide that support. And this is a population we're missing in mental health. We're really missing the mark here. We need to get on this and help bridge the gap.
Well, thanks. I love hearing your passion for this, and thank you for doing what you're doing with this. This is a really big undertaking to put this network together, and I think it's just going to benefit so many people.
Well, thank you so much for having me and for sharing this opportunity.
Yes. Well, thanks again, Tasha, and hopefully we'll be able to get you back on again as the network develops. Well, as I said at the beginning, I love hearing from people like Tasha and just hearing about her journey and really being able to live into her passion and the things that she cares the most about. And as I said too, is that is the perfect way to identify your niche, is really looking at what you're passionate about and the issues clinically that really draw you in. And I think when we do that, people pick up on that. And so, again, thanks to Tasha for joining me. Be sure and check out, not only her Autism Therapist Network, when again, there's links here in the show summary and the show notes, and that's autism-therapist-network.com. And then also her podcast, which is autismactionpodcast.com. Wanted to say that right. And we'll have links in the show summary and the show notes here as well. And so, again, thanks to Tasha for joining me. And I'm sure you're going to hear more from her here on this podcast in the future. Also, be sure and check out the Google Workspace as a practice platform course. It is now in the pre-launch, and you can get to that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/GWS platform. And also be sure and check out our sponsors for the podcast, Blueprint Health. And if you'll go to practiceoftherapy.com/Blueprint Health, that'll get you to the landing page where you can get 1 month, try them out for 1 month for free. And also be sure and check out TherapyNotes. They're the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice, and you can find out more about them by going to practiceoftherapy.com/TherapyNotes, and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, just GORDON, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. So it's a great deal. So thanks again, folks, for joining me for this particular episode. Be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts, and follow or subscribe, whatever the button says. It does the same thing. So be sure and do that. And also leave us a rating and leave us a review. It's much appreciated and helps other people find us. So take care, folks, and I look forward to joining me, or me joining you in your life in the next episode. Take care, folks. You have been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.